Thank you everyone for joining us. Happy New Year. Welcome to an hour or so, probably maybe 90 minutes, because I always talk too much, of me chatting with the wonderful Suzanna Cruickshank. Suzanna is a swim guide based up in the Lake District. As Matt has already said, she's written a wonderful book on swimming in the lakes. It's an award-winning book, no less. She's also the founder and curator, is that the right term, of the All Pie No Try Club, which is a fabulous, randomly loose collective of swimmers. There's a beautiful hat and a badge, and Susanna's modelling her beautiful t-shirt this evening. And I think Susanna and I are both swim guides. I'm a swim coach as well, which is kind of slightly different. We'll talk about that in a bit later. Both very, very equally good ways to learn how to swim with a coach or a guide. Okay, yeah, we both are full of masses of knowledge and experience to kind of impart, but I think Susanna and I are both very down to earth, possibly could be described as quite sarcastic and slightly dry sense of humour. We also both have a collective love of pastry and pies, and food post swim. So this evening we're going to chat a little bit about our kind of both of our kind of ways into wild swimming, outdoor swimming, whatever you want to call it, how we got there, kind of why we do our jobs, and then there's a few other topics we're going to try and cover. Thanks, Andrew. I've never heard sarcasm from your mouths at all. No.
He's obviously not been listening then, has he?
No. I know Andrew very well. So, first things first, I want to hear about how and why you got into outdoor swimming.
I was thinking about this the other day because it's a question that you get asked a lot when you're in a position like me where you've written a book or you've done something that's raised your profile slightly. And it wasn't even swimming that I started with, because I didn't have a particularly exciting, outdoorsy, exciting upbringing. We lived in the middle of Coventry. We had very calm and sedate holidays. There was no trekking up mountains or anything like that, and just used to swim or even paddle in the sea on the Isle of Wight. So that was it, basically. Childhood, through my teens, nothing at all. I was not sporty, not outdoorsy, didn't do anything like that. And it wasn't until I came to the Lake District on a holiday and I had to go for a walk because we'd got a dog. So it was the dog that got me out, and I don't think I would have gone exploring if we didn't have the dog. And it's that set off this chain of events then that I realised that actually it's quite nice being outside, and it's quite nice exploring places with this enthusiastic four-legged friend that wants to go places, and it's better than walking on the pavement and going around in circles in a park. So I guess really I've got Rosie, my previous dog, to thank for getting me into the outdoors. And yeah, so to sort of cut a long story short, I ended up taking a job in the Lake District and just throwing myself into everything that you've got on your doorstep here. And when I moved here, and started a life here, one of the friends that I lived with in Keswick, she swam in the lake. Well, she still does swim in the lake most days, and to her that was just her regular normal thing to do. It wasn't, I've mentioned her in my book. She never posts on Strava. I don't think she's ever had Facebook, no selfies, nothing like that. She just goes down to the lake and swims and goes home again. And one morning I went with her, and it was instant. It was not just a case of I loved it. It was a case of I was actually quite good at it, and I didn't expect to be. So yeah, so I've got a lot to thank Jude for, actually. It's all her fault.
Yeah. So yeah, there's always somebody's, yeah, there's always someone's fault.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, relatively speaking, I've not been swimming outdoors as long as perhaps some people that are watching this evening. I think it's only been about 10 or 11 years really that I've gone from nothing to doing it as a career. It's quite scary, really.
Yeah. No, I don't think it is. I think if you have the passion for something, you invest the time into it to learn everything you possibly can and get the experiences in. And I think from my previous kind of job before I had kids, my job now is post kid career change. And you know, when I think back to how quickly I learned in my old job and sort of kind of progressed quite quickly because I threw myself into it and learned everything I could, and you know, that was perfectly okay. It didn't need to take years and years and years of experience, it turned out, to get the knowledge I needed. So from that starting point of you starting to swim outdoors, what then made you progress to doing it as a job?
I think very quickly, it wasn't that I got bored, I wanted to do more of it because I loved it. And in the same way that when I first went to the lakes, I did a lot of walking, a lot of hill walking, and you started ticking off Wainwrights, things like that. And, you know, I'd always go back to my favourites, but there was always a case of there is so much here to go at. I want to see all of it. I want to do all of it. And it was the same with the lakes, really, that once I'd got the measure of Derwent water and I'd got all my favourite swims in there and I'd done all them, and that was great. And I think if I lived in Keswick still, I probably would still swim in the lake every day. But I wanted to see the rest of the Lake District. I wanted to go and swim in all the other lakes, so started going to swim in them, and that's where it kind of clashed with sort of what I previously wanted to do as a career, which was train to be a mountain leader. And I did a little bit of walk guiding on the side, just as to help out a friend, really. So I did backup guiding for a women's walking company. And, you know, the idea was I was going to pass and be a mountain leader. I would stop waiting tables in hotels, which is what I was doing at the time. And I'd just be this outdoor instructor and it would all be amazing. But with this, when the swimming came along, I thought it was my hobby. And I remember doing this one particular holiday where I'd got my group and I was taking them for walks, but the one thing they all wanted to do was go for a swim, but none of them knew how or where or anything like that. And I took them for a swim in where was the first place we went to? There's this little town above Buttermere called Blackbeck Tarn. It was a real baptism of fire because it was chucking it down. And I thought, oh God, you know, this is what they've booked for and they want to do it. And guided them up to the tarn, got them in the water, but they all loved it. Even though it was raining, even though they were all soaked and they're taking off their wet clothes and then getting into the lake, they all had a fantastic time. And I think that sort of that holiday gave me this light bulb moment that actually maybe I don't want to be, you know, an out and out mountain leader. Maybe I want to be not necessarily jack of all trades, but you know, there's quite a lot of mountain leaders, but as far as I could tell, there wasn't that many people that took people swimming. So yes, the business kind of combines the two things, really. Obviously, there's probably more of an emphasis on swimming now, but I still do the walks and I still take people to places that they perhaps wouldn't otherwise go to. It's I mean, so
I think
Go on,
can you give a bit of a description of what you actually do as a guide? Because I think that, you know, this the whole thing I said about the beginning of there's kind of swim coaches and swim guides, and there's other kind of cold water coaches as well, and we're all slightly different and all have our own kind of little specialisms, and there's quite a broad range to look at. And I know you get people coming to you who you kind of go, well, actually I'm not sure I'm the right fit for you. So go on, tell me more about what your business is about.
Yeah, because I think that's where we're different, because you are a coach and you've got that qualification, and I'm not a coach, and I've never qualified as a coach, not because I can't. I probably could if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I think there's a lot of really, really good coaches out there, and I'm not one of them. I've got no interest in coaching people. Ultimately, I think from my perspective, that what got me into it was helping people access the water safely and confidently and enjoying it. It wasn't necessarily getting them in and saying, right, we're going to swim around these buoys and we're going to do a course and we're going to, you know, do drills and things, and I'm going to teach you how to swim as if you were going to do the Great North Swim. I think that comes back to me being intrinsically lazy. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy school, so I'm definitely not going to enjoy me teaching people how to do things. But I think, that goes back to my point. There's lots of really great coaches out there, and I don't know what I would bring to it as a coach, because it's they're not the skills that I want to pass on. I think my skills are sort of outdoor skills more than anything. So I do spend
you're giving
I spend a lot of time sending people to Colin Hill, because he's sort of does this similar thing to us in Ullswater, but he's an amazing coach. He's coached me, and I just think there's I couldn't even hold myself up to someone like him. And I wouldn't want to, because same as yourself, we've got different things that we can offer, and what he doesn't offer I do, and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's a really important point to make, is if I know that we've kind of pitched this as a kind of starting out session, so we're chatting about our starting out journey, and our kind of, we'll give you some top tips as well for starting out soon, but kind of coming into firstly, I'm going to define all the terms. Ignore them, right? So you get wild swimming, you get outdoor swimming, you get open water swimming, you get cold immersion, you get cold water therapy. Basically, it's all just swimming outside in natural water. It could be a lake, it could be a reservoir, a river, the sea, a loch, a tarn, whatever term we use, we're just talking about swimming outside.
Yeah, I think I don't know whether you've noticed.
People want to approach it in different ways.
I don't know whether you've noticed, Susie, but there's been a little bit, I've noticed quite a lot of kickback to, a lot of people saying, oh, well, it's just swimming. And in my day, we called it swimming. But I think there does need to be a little bit of distinction, because I know if I said to some people that I mix with, I'm off for a swim, they think I'm heading down the leisure centre. And I don't know, it's not that, I'm being snobbish about it, because I do occasionally go to the leisure centre. But in most of the time, when I say I'm going for a swim, I'm going to the lake. But I think when people get really cross about this wild swimming, but, if you go for a swim, Don't Water, for example, there's people around, there's life rings by the side of the lake, mountain rescue are a phone call away. If you trek up to the top of a mountain and go and swim in a tarn where potentially there's not a lot of people around, if you needed help, it's going to be at least an hour's decent hike away. So I think there does have to be a little bit of a distinction in terms of the situation that you're swimming in. I wouldn't expect a novice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's been a really interesting 2 years, because outdoor swimming's gone through the roof in popularity, because the pools were shut, because we couldn't go anywhere, because people couldn't go overseas. Lack of kind of Mediterranean summer holidays meant people will go in water here, and that has led to some problems. And I think there have been people putting themselves at risk because they see this beautiful new, I'm going to say it, this fashionable hobby.
Yes.
I hate the word, but it's true. And they see all the beautiful pictures, but don't understand what goes behind it, and the kind of thought and the understanding of being outdoors you have to go through. And I think, I've chatted to other coaches about this as well, and we all have a little bit of a concern that swimming, unlike some other outdoor activities, I know Matt's a big climber, if you go climbing, you kind of know that you're going to need a bit of kit, you're going to need a rope, potentially. If you fall off, you could quite well die. Whereas with swimming, you could essentially get up off your sofa, go and get in your cosy. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah. And you don't even need
to learn about doing that.
Get in your underwear. Yeah.
Yeah. Always wear sensible underwear. It's very accessible, but it does mean that a lot of people are coming to it who don't have the kind of basic outdoor knowledge of kind of knowing what the weather does and what the wind does, and air temperature changes and all that kind of stuff. So it's a great thing to get into, but there's lots of other bits to think about that you don't necessarily think about. I think both Suzanna and I, because Suzanna had got really into walking before she started swimming, and I've always been quite outdoorsy. I've been a kayaker since my teens. I didn't realise until I started talking very openly about outdoor swimming how much knowledge I already had from my background anyway, that other people didn't have. So people would ask me questions and I'd be a bit like, oh, that seems like a daft question, and it isn't. It's just that they don't know, because they've not spent days on the hills, or unintentionally swum down a river because they've fallen out of the kayak in the middle of winter, which is what I used to do regularly, which is why I prefer swimming, because if I'm going in intentionally, it's much more enjoyable.
Yeah. So what would be the most important thing that you put in your backpack then before you set out? Sorry, hard question straight away.
Oh, right, man. Well, you see, it depends on the time of year.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing. So in the summer, my absolute most essential item is one of my scarves. I've got the wrong one on today, but it kind of doesn't matter what I'm wearing. If I go out for a walk and I've got like loads of really thin scarves wrapped around my neck, there's nothing to them, but they're a perfect towel.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my basic.
Your go-to thing.
Basic. Yeah.
I've got
and then in the winter it's gloves and socks. I can't go in if my hands and feet aren't covered. Yeah.
I've got the one thing that's always in my bag, regardless of whether it's summer or winter, is this crappy old Marks and Spencer's jumper, but it's wool, it's pure wool, and so it doesn't matter whether it's damp or whether I'm damp, and you put it on and it's warm, and it's so light, you know, and it just shoves into a pocket. And you know, I think I'd probably be quite embarrassed to be seen in daylight in it, but it's like my emergency bit of kit, and it's always in the bottom of my bag.
Oh, hey.
I'll have to show you next time I see you. It is hideous now.
Is it holy yet? Has it got like random moth holes in it and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Ventilation.
I've got a really nasty, cheap, but really big, thick, fleecy jumper from Aldi. I think it might even be like pajama type range. Yeah. But that's my go-to when I'm swimming locally. I put that on because it doesn't matter how dirty it gets or how smelly and wet it gets. I don't care. Yeah, but it's really toasty and warm. It's like a big teddy bear. So I'm gonna get Matt to run the poll for us.
Okay.
On the food. So we have a very exciting poll for you. So for a lot of people, the reason they swim outdoors is for the I can see it. I'm going to hide that because it's distracting me. It's like pinging all over the place.
Oh, you put the same cake.
Has anyone clicked fruit yet?
Yes.
Oh,
God, get them out. I'm going to close it. It's making me cross.
It's really distracting, isn't it? Yeah. So for Susanna and I, certainly, I think we you need, if you're doing any kind of exercise, okay, whether it's going for a run or a walk or a swim or anything, you need to be fueled anyway. You know, there's certainly with cold, if you're swimming in very cold water, and I think a lot of people underestimate this, you use a lot of energy keeping warm. So if you haven't got some fuel in your belly before you get in, and then you haven't got something to sustain you afterwards, you're really going to struggle with the swim and then the warming up process afterwards. I'm quite a fan of a sausage roll. We have an amazing bakery in the villages that done a very good Stilton and pickle sausage roll, and I often take out on a swim. But I know, Susanna, you're a big fan of a pie, and there's a reason for the pie, isn't there? Yeah, go on.
Well, they're practical, you know, it's something substantial that you can fling in your backpack and it's not going to get damaged, and it would sustain you. Like, I think there's probably no distance that I couldn't walk on a pie. You know, if I needed to get home from somewhere and things were getting a bit gnarly, if I'd got a pie and I just sat down and ate it, I would get home again. And I think that's what, and I suppose it's not cake versus pie, but it is a case of, like you say, having something sensible to eat. Like, obviously I do take fruit with me, but it tends to be things like bananas, because you need something that it's not just gonna, you've got to want to eat it as well. You know, sometimes I see people bring out these very sort of wholesome and well-meaning packed lunches, but there's not actually that much substance to them, and I think they might be fine, you know, in an office job, or somewhere, you know, where you've got.
I'm sorry, I've just seen the chat. Who the chuff eats fruit post swim?
Well, I think we agreed, didn't we? If anyone ticked fruit, we were going to chuck them out of the session, weren't we?
Six people ticked fruit.
6. I mean, if they're talking about bananas, that's fine. But anything else, no, get out.
Yvonne Wiseman, you are welcome on any of our swim days.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a shout out for the Bakehouse in Whaley Bridge, which is where I get my particularly good sausage rolls from.
I'm gonna have to have a look at this. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we can probably stop. We can probably stop the poll, but because I think everyone's done. So we've got 57% cake, only 8% pie, 18% chocolate.
I am outraged.
4%. I'm surprised. Fruit has come higher than crisps. Biscuits at 8.
Wow.
I think that's kind. I thought pie would come higher than chocolate.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, cake is always high up. Yeah. So, what is your favourite pie?
Chicken and mushroom.
Chicken and mushroom.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were a meat and potato.
No, mince and onion, yes, but yeah, meat and potato. Yeah, I mean, I love all of them. Clearly. I was thinking about this earlier. I think it depends where I'm buying them from as to which is my favourite.
That's true. Yeah. And of course, we have to clarify here that a pie has to be something entirely encased in pastry.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a casserole with a top.
No.
That's not a pie.
No.
Yeah. No, that's not okay.
Yeah.
So how
I should say I do like cakes, and I know that Claire, one of my swimmers, is watching this, and she's fantastic at cakes. But I don't see her often enough to sample them. I just get to see photos of them.
Oh,
I know.
Oh no! What's your favourite cake then?
Oh
right, no. Tell you what, There's two. Right, favourite ever cake, but also then best cake for a swim.
Best cake for a swim. Oh right. I'd probably go fruit cake actually, like Christmas cake, marzipan icing, because it's dense. Not going to get damaged easily. You see, damage is my thing. If I'm taking food, I want to eat all of it. But if it gets, if there's like icing smeared all over a piece of foil or the inside of lunchbox, that's just waste. You can't eat it.
Yeah.
And when you've got
I agree.
You can't lick the inside of a Tupperware, I've learned. so basically I want something that's very well constructed and is not going to fall apart.
Yeah, you see, that's why I'm a fan of flapjack, because it's solid, dense, doesn't fall apart. But actual favorite cake then? I
think it's classic Victoria sponge, if it's made really well and it's not dry. You can't really beat that, can you?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I do. So I'm not very good at making cake, I must say. I have to buy them because I can't make them, but I do make flapjack for my swimmers, after my accountant told me that making brownies for my swimmers was not cost effective because there's too many ingredients. So I'm really,
do you know what, I tend to agree.
I'm really sorry to everyone that comes on my session. No brownies, because my accountant said no.
I'm just gonna I do brownie and flapjack, and but no, they are significantly more expensive.
I'm really sorry to everyone that came here to talk about swimming.
I'm going to get back on swimming, but I want you to tell me about the origins of the All Pie No Try Club. That's where we're going for.
Swim at the moment. Oh, have we got someone talking?
I'm just saying, like 20 people have left already.
Let's see who it is.
No, I can't.
Matt will mute them.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody's going because we're talking about food too much. So very briefly, the reason for All Pie No Try is when I first started swimming outdoors, it didn't have the profile that it has now. So people swam outdoors because they had to, because they were doing a triathlon. There wasn't as many people doing it because they loved it, or if they were, they weren't very visible. So when I first started, and so I went with my friend Jude, and then I started going with my friend Ali, and because we lived in Keswick and there's a lot of very sporty, very outdoorsy people in Keswick, and you have all the events and things, so everybody was saying, well, are you training for a triathlon? Is that why you're swimming outdoors? We're about the least likely people to ever do a triathlon, basically, because it sounds absolutely like madness. But the perception was then, and this is only 10 years ago, that if you swam outdoors, it was because you were training for something. So, and because we took pies with us on our swims, that was where it came from. All pie, no try. So no triathlons.
This is why I love it, because I started swimming outdoors, not because I wanted to do triathlon, but because a lot of my friends did. So I kind of went along with them, and then it went from there. And it there was kind of a bit of a competitive edge to it, and I realized I didn't enjoy that at all. And then I kind of pared things back, and I found my own way. So I do still do the odd event, but it's not, it's more to see if I can finish it than to do anything competitive and kind of, I'm going to train really hard. I've got mates who do that, and that's fine, and they enjoy it and they love it. The Old Pine Doe Tri Club isn't all triathletes bad. It's just a recognition that not everybody wants to do the same thing, and that's okay. Absolutely. You kind of find your own way in your swim world. So moving on from the food conversation, let's go for some top tips for starting out.
Oh, top tips. Go with a friend. Yeah, don't go on your own. I think it's always more fun if you take someone with you, and it's nice to have someone to give you that enthusiasm to get in and just coach you in a little bit, but also someone that's going to watch you back as well. And even though I do it for a living, I don't think that you should always come to me or you or any kind of organized thing. I think everyone should feel confident to rock up at a lake and swim on their own, but definitely for your first time, make sure that you got somebody with you. That would be my first top tip.
Your first top tip. So we've got a few we can probably go through, haven't we? I'm sure you have a list, but at top of mind is swim your own swim. Kind of, a lot of people go in and think, right, I've got to do this, I've got to do what the person next to me is doing, I've got to do what someone on Instagram's doing, I've got to stay in for this amount of time because that's what the next person did. And I think what I learned really early on was everybody is very, very different in the obvious stuff like fitness, kind of build, but cold tolerance, how you manage your swim yourself. So whether you eat well beforehand and how quickly you get changed and all that kind of stuff. And it's really important. I think the one thing I really love about it and why I got is it's made me really learn and understand my own body and what my body can do. And kind of acknowledge that that's different to someone else. I have a really regular swim bud who is now my best mate, and she's littler than me, so her cold tolerance isn't as good as mine. I can stay in for longer, but she can swim a different swim to me. And it's that, and understanding that difference between your mates as well, and going with it. And a bit like I said before about I started swimming with a bunch of triathletes and then went, that's not really for me. I still swim with them, but I do different stuff. I kind of get dragged along for the ride because it makes me go out.
I think for another tip for me as well is not worrying about buying all the kit to start with. Certainly for my sessions and people like Swim the Lakes, who are another sort of outdoor swim provider in the Lake District, all the kit's provided, so you don't need to get yourself stressed about I've got to have this, I've got to have that, I've got to have the dry robe. Getting all the kit, it just proves that you've got money to spend. It doesn't make you a swimmer. So get in and try it first before you start buying all the kit, because obviously we're the professionals and we can advise you on what you need or what you might not need. Buying the right wetsuit, for example, if you want to wear a wetsuit. When I look at the kit that I give out to my swimmers and the stuff that I wear myself, it's changed a lot over the years, working out and refining. So I think, don't stress it until you know that you're going to enjoy it, because you can make some quite expensive mistakes.
Yeah, I know. I did start swimming when I very first started. I started in a wetsuit, and that's because that's what everyone else did. And to be honest, I was scared of the cold. I didn't know how I was going to tolerate it. I'll never forget. I got into this because I relearned how to swim front crawl. And I could clear as day this conversation. The coach stood on the end of the pool going, "Have you ever thought about swimming outside?" Because I've got quite a kind of long, slow, steady front crawl stroke. And I turned around and went, "No, don't be stupid, it's cold."
It's cold.
And then, I don't know, by the following summer, I was completely hooked. But it was not even on my radar at all. So I bought a wetsuit because I thought that was what I needed. As it turned out, the one I bought was wrong. It was too buoyant for me. We can talk about that a little bit if people want to know. And so I had to change it. Thankfully, because swimming's so popular, there's quite a decent second-hand market for wetsuits, so I managed to sell it on eBay and get quite a bit of my money back. But I did have to shop around a bit to find the right suit for me. And I, you know, Susanna and I both have a lot of kit, but because we've been doing it for a very long time, and I certainly do kind of everything, you know, I range from a cheeky skinny dip to, at the minute in the winter, I have layers and layers of neoprene on so that I can go and have a kind of decent swim. But you don't need all of that if that's not, if you're not doing all of it.
Because I think that's where we differ. The most I'd swim in winter. So I'm going to the Scottish Championships in March, so the most I'll swim will be 500 meters, which is still, you know, it's still a reasonable distance. But I'm not one for doing long swims in winter. For me, it's just getting in. is the thing.
No, I know. I've missed my long winter swims actually because I had COVID in November and I haven't done one, and I went in yesterday and it was absolute heaven. It was gorgeous. It was just like, I was so happy. I stopped halfway and went, I'm just really, really happy that I've had a proper swim outside. But I also do the, you know, the freezing cold dips, screaming, swearing quite a bit as I get in. You know, each to their own.
And I think, you know, you going back to what you said earlier about swimming your own swim, I know a lot of it's become quite fashionable now to do dip every day in the winter months. So a lot of people, January especially, go and swim every day.
I did it in November. Not this year. It was rubbish.
No, I mean, certainly for me, this time of year, this is my downtime. This is when my work is quiet. It's my time to catch up on everything I've not done for the rest of the year. And the idea of getting in and swimming every day at the moment, no, thank you. I'm doing a lot. I think that there's a big fashion for winter swimming and cold swimming, and you see all these amazing gritty faced pictures on Instagram and Facebook and wherever, and you know, in papers and all over the place, but you know, I kind of feel that the only those good bits go on social media. In the background there will probably be quite a few people, maybe equal, that get in and go, that was horrific, I'm not doing that again. I'm gonna wait till it warms up. I did that last week. I met one of my customers in Wastwater, and you know, I was reasonably. It was a social swim, I should say. If I'm working, I'm on it. But this was a social swim, and I wasn't prepared. I hadn't eaten properly beforehand. I thought, I'll pick something up on the way, because I was going to Wasdale. I was going to grab a pie. Pie shop was closed. No pie for Susanna. So I wasn't fueled. I was relying on the kit that I keep in my van to keep me warm afterwards, and it was just, you know, a random selection of clothing that didn't include underwear. And you know, I was very badly prepared, and it was a windy day, and I got out and I thought, okay, I don't necessarily regret the swim, but I really regret not preparing properly for it, because I just didn't get warm for the rest of the day. And there was just a few key things that I could have done that would have changed that. And but I mean, that happens. It's not just a winter thing. I think you can get out and feel that rubbish in summer as well if you're not prepared properly.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of another top tip, isn't it? To not just, I think it's certainly when you're starting out, you only think about the swim. You know, think about, this is how far I'm going to go, or I'm going to wear a wetsuit, or I'm going to be a cosy, or I'm going to be in for this long. And actually, it's more pronounced over winter. Kind of, I talk about it with people that your margins in the summer are like this, and in the winter they're like this. But that kind of pre and post swim bit is really important, if crucial. Not as just as important. Having the right kit with you, laying it out properly so that it's easy to get on when you get back out again. You know, thinking about what you're doing afterwards. So you know, I often say to people, look, if I often swim very early morning because it fits with my day of getting kids up into school and all the rest of it. But if I was in a position where I was going early morning and then I had to go and sit in an office for the day, I probably wouldn't be able to do it because I'd be cold. I wouldn't have been able to warm up properly to then go and sit still for 6, 7, 8 hours in an office, you know. And it's thinking about that kind of stuff that's really important. And of course you drive home as well. If you're driving back, you've got to make sure
that you drive.
that you're warm, that you're fit to drive. And we're not going to talk about it in much detail in here, but kind of go and we'll stick some links in the email that comes out. But things like you need to know about cold water shock, cold incapacitation, after drop. Go and read up on them. It's not that complicated. There's like three web pages you can read on the Outdoor Swimming Society website that will give you everything you need in detail, from common sense, experienced people who know what they're doing. But they're the kind of big things you need to be prepared for.
Absolutely. There's a few questions coming in. Do you want to have a look at them yet?
No, I think we'll leave those till the end because Matt's pinging them through.
Okay.
We're already on 20 to, we're already on 20 to 9. We're all right.
Yeah, we've got to keep talking.
We've got to keep going. And what I will say, what I do want to say is, right, I know that Susanna and I both do this as a job. This probably sounds like a horrific sales pitch, but don't be afraid of asking for professional help if you want it. I think I have been on lots and lots of Facebook groups, and there has been kind of like a bit dismissiveness of getting professional support with certain things in outdoor swimming. You don't need it. You absolutely don't. You go in with a mate.
Just go and jump in. It'll be fine.
Yeah. But if there's something really specific you want to go do and you're not sure about it, there's no harm in hiring somebody to help you. It isn't for everyone. We're fine with that. We're not trying to push that, but just if you want some support, come and ask us or someone else. Or there's loads of swim guides and coaches now across the UK. Go and get the help you need if you want it.
Because this is not a sales pitch, but we're working together on a workshop later this year where we're essentially going to be telling people how to do our jobs so they can go off and do it themselves. But it's underlined by the fact that we want people to go and do it safely and enjoy it, and so we're just passing on the benefit of our experience and in that kind of manner. We might be out of a job by the end of this year, Susie.
Who knows? I'll change career again. Done it once. Do it again. Want to have a little bit of chat about kind of guidebooks and Facebook groups and Instagram, because obviously there's loads of like inspirational posts on Facebook and Instagram. Good old social media. I think I'm on some amazing Facebook groups. I pulled away from a lot because it just gets a bit much. I think what's your top tip for managing social media when it comes to swimming and swim advice?
Don't look at it. No. I find it very, very difficult, and I find that I've had to disengage with Facebook. I find that quite troubling. Not troubling, that's probably the wrong word, but it's too much for my brain to handle. I really admire people that can be on it all the time and not be affected by it. But for me, I think what's changed is having gone from being a swimmer who enjoys it to being someone that does it for a living and has seen things go wrong in a professional capacity and as a bystander. And then seeing stuff on Facebook and just the internet in general, where you think that's an accident waiting to happen, or, oh, that's really bad advice, I want to step in. But it's realizing that you can't fight all those battles, you can't answer all those questions, because it is more than a full-time job and it's not my job to do it. So I suppose with Facebook, I've just had to step away from it because there's too much text, and because I am quite a wordy person anyway, I get drawn in. So it's taken a little while, but I just put a timer on my phone until eventually I was not looking at it anymore. I prefer Instagram because they're just pictures, so you don't have to read it. I try to follow things that are not related to swimming as well, so that I can zone it out a little bit. So I follow just something to take it away. I think if for those of you who are new to it and who are using Facebook groups to kind of get advice and meet up with people, they are an amazing place to kind of find swim friends and people to go out with, because absolutely when you're starting out you need to be swimming with other people. It's more entertaining and you've got someone to keep an eye on you, but also
there's lots of very well-intentioned advice given on these Facebook groups, and one of the reasons Suzanna's pulled away, and I'm a bit like, oh, is it's not always good advice.
Right advice.
Yeah, and you know, people who have been swimming for a few months, very, very enthusiastic, absolutely mean the right thing, but don't have the right advice, if that makes sense, the safe advice. I think if you're relying on Facebook groups, do a bit of digging into who's giving that advice. You know, have they been swimming for a few years, or have they been swimming for a month? They're a great source for kind of finding kit as well, like recommendations for gloves and socks and all sorts. I see all the time, because it's a minefield out there on equipment.
And I think as well, you know, people, as you say, when they are really enthusiastic about it, it's from their perspective rather than, you know, looking at it, you know, bringing yourself away from it and just giving that person advice. But it's what's worked for you doesn't necessarily work for that other person. Going back to that swim your swim thing. There's some really awesome advice out there, but make sure it's kind of right and what works for you. But also test stuff. So I'll often see people go, you know, I do this, and that's ace. Go and test it. I've found outdoor swimming like one long experiment to see what my body can do, and can't do in some cases. So we've got the kind of Facebook groups of good locations as well that get piped up on social media and Instagram, and then the kind of impact, of course, of that. So I know kind of last year, so kind of when we eased out of lockdown, a lot of spots were getting really, really hammered because they've become very popular on social media, and you know, the environments were getting damaged. I know the Outdoor Swimming Society took down they had a wild swim map with loads of swim locations on it, and they took it down because they just went, we don't want to be kind of responsible for places getting trashed. And I think it's a real tough one, because people kind of want an easy life and will go, right, can someone just tell me? And some people are a bit resistant. So how do you think we can avoid that and make sure that we're not attacking those, what we refer to as honeypot sites often? I don't know whether we can. I think the genie's out of the bottle now, and it's too hard to get it back. Because how do you stop people now? Places like we talked about it earlier, like Black Moss Pot in the Lake District, Fairy Pools in Skye. They are so well known. Even people that are not interested in swimming in these kind of places, they're perhaps going to have heard of them because they've seen a photo of it. I think we just have to promote, you know, how to protect the environment, and how, if you're going to be a responsible swimmer, not to hammer particular locations. I mean, obviously, I'm guilty in all of this because I've written a guidebook and I've told people where to go swimming. The one thing I tried really hard to do was make sure that the locations that I chose, they're already in the public domain. They're and they're accessible, but they're not overly environmentally sensitive, so they can take the traffic that goes to them. But what I have tried to promote is that this is just your starter, so try and look at other places. You know, you don't just have to go to this one very specific spot. You know, there could be another one 2 meters away, just because it's not the place that I've said. And I think for people to think about when they get somewhere, if it is rammed, move on. It tends to be the places that are quite easy to get to from parking, I've found, certainly over the last 2 years in the Lake District. Anywhere where you can park close to a lake, it's overrun with swimmers, paddleboarders, people having picnics, that kind of thing. No,
I was up. I was up last September over a weekend, and I dropped my mate off. She was doing some stupid big hilly bike ride, and I went for a dip in Derwent Water, and it must have been 8 o'clock. And I could barely get in the car park. I'm like, that's bonkers.
I suppose, you know, some of us will walk on a little bit further, but I don't know, maybe we're just a little bit lazy and you just want to get in the first place that you find. So now if I'm out with a group, there's certain places that I don't take groups to anymore because I know that they're getting damaged, so I try to go on somewhere else. But as I said earlier, I don't think you're ever going to stop it now, because they're out there. And people want to go to those honeypot locations. Yeah.
I think all right, maybe the answer is that anyone in here, if you see a honeypot location, don't go to that one. Go to it. All the popular places, don't go. Or just walk like a mile rather than 10 meters to your swim spot.
I mean, there's a lot of them, they share similarities. They're photogenic, they've got a name, they've got a hook. It doesn't always need all of that. I've got places that I swim that are nameless, and I thought, oh, maybe I should put this in my book, but actually there's nothing to distinguish it from this other place. So there's always somewhere else out there. Just got to look for it.
Totally. Right, I think I finished my questions. I think you've got some for me, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I wanted to know, let me just have a look on my list. What's your worst outdoor swimming experience? Because people always ask, how did you get started? What's your favourite lake? What is your worst thing that's happened to you?
Worst one? Yeah. Right, I think, to be honest, actual swim.
Yeah.
I think I can hand on heart say I've never regretted a swim.
Okay.
But the worst incident I had, which was an amazing learning curve.
Yeah.
My mate and I went. It was April, kind of springtime. Water's still fairly cold at that time of year, so certainly probably similarly in the lakes. But I'm based in the Peak District, and kind of our waters until the beginning of May is solidly below 10 degrees. It's still very cold. And then obviously depending on the air temperature and the wind, it's going to affect kind of how cold you get when you swim. So my mate and I had gone for a swim. She decided to wear her sleeveless wetsuit. We were really well acclimatized by this point. We swum through the winter. We felt pretty good and confident in that kind of weather and those conditions. She'd wore a sleeveless wetsuit, but it was windy, and it was windier than we expected it to be. And we did kind of a there and back in one of the reservoirs locally to us. And we were fine all the way down, and we swim. We don't swim right next to each other because we're at different speeds, but we kind of constantly check on each other as we're going. And we checked at the far end before we turned around. Yeah, we were both fine, head back in. And then on the way back, not that far, I wasn't that far from shore, I turned around and she was a really long way behind me. I was like, oh shit. And she'd stopped, and she never stops. She'll maybe stop to look for me, and then she'll go straight back in and head off again, whereas I stop and faff around for quite a bit. And I was like, oh, that's not good. So I swam back to her, and she was hypothermic.
Oh God.
She was really, really cold. She at that point, she kind of lips hadn't started to turn blue. But she was like, I'm really, really cold and I'm really struggling to swim. And we very slowly swam back together. We were maybe 200 meters out. By the time she got to the shore, she was really shivery, kind of struggling to stand up, blue lips, struggling to speak. Thankfully, we're both quite experienced outdoors people, so we knew what it was. And we knew how to manage it. We weren't far from the car, so I kind of but I had to hold her up to walk back to the car and get her in. And we literally piled everything we had on top of her in the car, whacked the heating up, drove. We were about a 10-minute drive from home, and I kind of went and sat with her while she warmed up at home and didn't leave her. But that was a massive learning curve on wind, of just how much that cools you down. Even if you swim a breaststroke and the only thing that's out is your head. Your shoulders will still chill, your head's going to chill that bit more. That was the worst one, I think. Yeah.
But like you say, you learn from it, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why you come to a coach or a guide, because they've done these stupid things so you don't have to.
Precisely. Yeah.
So what was yours?
Mine was this was before I became a swim guide, and it was one of those things that made me think, okay, I need to learn more about what I'm actually doing. I'd gone for a walk, and I'm pretty sure, thinking back, that it would have been midsummer, probably about August. And I'd gone for a walk up Coniston Old Man with my friend Anne, and she was going to run to the summit and I was going to swim in the tarn. But the thing about the tarn there is that it's pretty deep, it's one of the colder ones because it's pretty deep. But I hadn't got any kit with me. It was one of these things where we'd done it at the last minute. She'd come in from work, I'd gone and met her, I hadn't had anything to eat. Come on, we'll just go up, it'll be fine. And I was full of that new swimmer confidence because I'd not been doing it long. So I can do anything. I think I might have done something like I'd swam the length of a lake that summer, and of course I was invincible. Nothing was going to stop me. So trekked up there, and I was like, I'm not going to the top of the mountain. I'm going to stay here and I'll go for a swim whilst you go to the top of the mountain. So off she went. And because it was evening, we're talking like 7-8 o'clock, maybe a little bit earlier. There was no one around, so I just stripped off, went to get in the tarn. But by the time I got to like knee deep and I was like semi-committed, it was really rocky. Like I'd not thought through where I was going to get in or how I was going to get out. I'd just got in. So clambering over all these rocks, getting progressively colder and in more pain because I hadn't got anything on my feet. Got in, had my swim. But of course, in that time that I had taken my clothes off, got in the water and got submerged, I mean, it can probably only been about 5 minutes, but it was long enough to have cooled me down sufficiently. But when I came to get out, I couldn't get out because my feet were frozen and they were painful. And I was trying to get out over these rocks, ended up crawling out. And by the time Anne got down from the mountain, from the top to where I was trying to get my clothes on, I was a gibbering wreck. I was hypothermic, and we did have quite a vicious argument about whether we were going to call mountain rescue or not. And I didn't want it to call mountain rescue because I was standing, I was clothed. I was like, okay, we're just going to slowly walk down. I think she was feeding me Tunnock's tea cakes as we were walking down the mountain. But you see, the crucial thing about it was that I hadn't really eaten anything before we'd gone out. I'd been at work all day, so I was tired-ish. And if I had have had something on my feet, it would have changed that whole situation. But I kind of, just got in blindly and committed to swimming. So generally now, if I don't have something on my feet, I don't swim. I might take them off. Obviously, I take them off once I'm in. But that was the one thing that would have changed that, and just having that little bit of knowledge.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the stupidest or the worst experience. But like you say, I don't regret the swim, but I regret the lack of knowledge going into it. I've learned.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say for anyone starting out, you will make mistakes.
Yeah, you
will go, oh, I can do this today, it'll be all right, and then you'll maybe go, that was maybe a bad decision. That's okay. That is all part of your learning experience. And it's very important. I think a big thing from life is we all learn from mistakes. So it's okay to make them sometimes. You don't have to get everything perfect. Yeah. Did you have any more before we move on to the
I suppose from a professional, but as professionals, there is an industry now with outdoor swimming. Is there anything that you would change or improve about our industry?
Make it more accessible for people.
Yeah,
I think I've gone down a different route to you. I think because I thought I had to be honest. Had I had the choice, I wouldn't have gone down the coaching route I went down. So I went into this after I'd had my kids. I used to have a very corporate suited and booted job, and then sacked that off after kids. Thought I'd go back to that, didn't, because I found swimming and went, I quite like to do this as a job instead. So I went down a very conventional, right, okay, I've got to train as a swimming teacher first so that I can then go and do my outdoor coaching qualification. And actually, the coaching qualification I did is more geared for kind of competitive swim coaching. And it's not really my bag. I never want to train someone to swim the channel or to race. I will happily prepare people for the kind of a big mass event if that's what they want to do. But I'm not going to train them to win it. I'll train them to kind of prepare for it and cope with a mass start and how to sight and how to turn around a buoy if you want to properly. But I'm a bit more like you. I just want to get people in the water and enjoying it in whatever way they want to enjoy it, whether that's, a quick dip or to swim 10k down a lake. So having a bit of a different structure, because for me doing this is more about having a really, really good knowledge of safety and how to keep people safe in the water, because I think that's the fundamental part of our job. Is making sure people are safe when they're swimming outside, because it is very different to a pool.
Yes.
I mean, so that really that's what I'd change, I think.
I think I feel the same. I wish that there was a qualification for what we do to make it a bit more official, because as you say, you can be qualified as a coach, but it doesn't necessarily give you the skills for what I do. Mine is sort of semi coaching, semi hill walking. So it's almost like so that you have in hill walking, you've got the mountain leader qualification, and then you've got the hill and moorland leader qualification, which is the one that I'm on at the moment. And hill and moorland is ideal for what I do, because it's kind of valleys, not going up to the top of the mountains, but dealing with that mid-technical terrain in between. And there kind of needs to be something for swimming as well that's not necessarily just lifeguarding and not necessarily just coaching. It's like that in between one. So
yeah, they're very specific, defined qualifications, and you're kind of only insured specifically for what you've done. And it's that's it's a bugbear of mine, which I whinge at various people about on a regular basis.
Yeah,
thankfully there's no one on here from Swim England, so they've heard me moan. Right, I think it's time we got onto some of these questions. So I'm
we're
just
dead
checking
on
my
9
phone.
o'clock, so
we'll get to 9. Well, we can go till past, so we've got half an hour.
Okay,
send us in your questions, people. Get them in the chat box if you've got more.
Talk quickly.
I know. What is your game-changing best piece of kit? So Judith. Judith.
Go on.
Oh, go on. Judith is the Swim Feral turtleback bag.
Oh, sorry, you were still talking. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Mine is Vivo barefoot swim shoes. They're like posh Crocs, basically. But I found that if you can swim in them as well as clamber over rocks and feel safe and secure, but they don't feel like they're going to fall off when you swim. I wouldn't wear them for like a mile, but I can be in the water for a substantial amount of time before I get irritated by them. Yeah. That's my
I think for me for winter, it's been decent socks and gloves. I have finally invested in some Seaskins socks.
Well done.
Which are like slippers. They're amazing. The 4mm ones are phenomenal. I need to. Oh, actually, no. I have some mittens for winter. Yeah, they're surf mittens. Then they're amazing. If you just do breaststroke, pootling about, they're phenomenal. My hands never get cold. Right. So from Glenn, it seems that the majority of cold water skin recreational swimmers are middle-aged women. Any thoughts on why this is and how we can reach out to other demographics, bringing greater diversity and accessibility to the love of open water?
I mean, it's a difficult one for us as two, white middle-class women to sit here and talk about diversity. But it's definitely happening. There are certainly in the Lake District, we see a lot of diversity because we get people travelling to come and swim in the lakes. But so we're perhaps not entirely the right people to speak about that. But in terms of the women that are doing it and the middle-aged women, this is very much this is my own personal point of view from the customers that I take swimming. A lot of them are women who are either approaching or in the menopause or just going through the menopause. So you've got alleviation of symptoms, so hot flushes. I'm 38, so I'm not at that stage yet, but approaching it. And what I tend to see is a lot of very nervous women who have perhaps lost their way slightly because the effect of the menopause on them has made them lose their confidence, confidence in their body, their mental capacity, all stuff like that. And when you put them in cold water, it just has this magical effect on them. And it's my favorite part of my job, is working with menopausal women, and it makes me feel a lot more prepared about it, because I remember my mum's menopause was hideous. I'm not sure if she's watching. I'm sorry if you are, Mum, but it wasn't a nice time for any of us, let alone you. And I wish you had been, able to get into cold water at that time. And I love seeing, women going from being very nervous and unsure about themselves and almost like they've, lost the ability to do the things that they love in life. And I know this is quite an airy-fairy way to look at it. It's not the case for everyone. It's not a magic fix, but the vast majority of women of that stage in their life that I have taken swimming, it's had that massive effect on them. And I've not seen anything else have the same effect. I think it's just, it's easier to go and plunge yourself in a bin full of cold water than it is to go and, run a marathon, because one of those things takes a lot more effort than the other. I think that's why there's such a focus on the swimming, because it's so accessible and so quick and easy to do, to get that reaction.
I'm gonna vouch for that. So I part of me relearning how to swim was to help me manage postnatal depression after I had my youngest child, and that then progressed into, but I have a condition called PMDD. You can go Google it. It's basically PMS on speed. So I get really bad mood swings and I get hot flushes. It's kind of like, a lot of the symptoms are very like menopause. So brain fog and all kinds of stuff as well. And I swimming is part of my way of managing it. And my husband, who is sat in the room with me right now on his phone, will probably vouch for it if he's not plugged into something else. He will tell me to go out for a swim. He knows when I need to go. You just go out now. How we get more blokes into it, I don't know. I do know quite a lot of men who swim. There's a friend on here, Andrew, who swims quite regularly. He's just said, I think there are lots of lone male swimmers who kind of go under the radar and people aren't aware of. I think the kind of mental health benefits of it that women get, same applies to men. And we do have a mental health crisis in men. I think women are more willing to talk. It's just part of our nature and what we do, and whereas there's much more stigma, I think, on men to speak. I've got 2 brothers and I've seen them struggle, and it's much harder for them to talk about it, and I think it would be wonderful to try and encourage more men into the water so that they can be, and that being in the water, I've had so many frank, open conversations swimming with people who I've met 5 minutes ago, and it's the one place that it just seems to let people open up.
I think what would be good if I, whilst you're talking, I'll get his Instagram handle. Jonathan, the editor of Outdoor Swimmer, he's swimming every day in January, and specifically with men. So that might be a good one to look and just to follow, because he's doing sort of the swim and a little mini interview with each of them, and it's been really interesting to see what they've been saying. So we'll put that on there. Yeah,
we'll put a link in for that. Yeah, cool. From Jennifer, that advice on South Yorkshire swim spots. I'm really sorry, but we can't do that today. So can you advise on areas to swim in South Yorkshire and other areas not close to the lakes? There is a wonderful Facebook group called the Sheffield Outdoor Plungers, which will cover much of the South Yorkshire area. There's an amazing map on there if you want to go and nosy on that. Otherwise, it's a case of kind of checking out Facebook groups, swim guidebooks if you can get hold of them. It is a bit of a minefield trying to find the right places. A lot of it's done by word of mouth. Oh, I found this place, let's spread it. My local swim spot has gone through the roof with the number of people, and it's just been kind of word of mouth from people that have found out. I'm going to skip that one because we've kind of covered that. This is a really hard one. How much would a swim guide cost? How long is a piece of string? Because it depends what you want.
I mean, I can tell you what my prices are. If someone was going to come along to one of my beginner sessions, I've got 2 different types of beginner sessions. So you can do a 1-to-1 with me. It's £105. You can come on a course with other people, that's about £95, or you can come to a quick start session, that's £65. All the equipment's included, so that's a big part of the cost. That's how much I cost. My group swims are cheaper, like depending on what the experience is, so that's what I would charge. I think it depends where you are in the country, as to how much it's going to cost you. It's going to kind of vary on what overhead there is as well. So, travel time and cost for the coach, but also if they've got an overhead and they're doing it at somewhere they're having to pay for as well. So a couple of the places I'm going to be using this year, I will have an overhead, so I'll have to pay to use a location. Because I am
yeah, Susanna, I have to say, point here, Susanna is exceptionally lucky to be working in the lakes, and that's why she's working in the lakes, because she has no massive issues with access to water.
No, I am very fortunate.
in the rest of England, access to water is more of a problem. That is an entire story for another day.
Yeah.
But a good plug for the talk I'll be doing in March with Nick Hayes. We'll be talking about swim trespass and other kinds of land access stuff. So tune into that when that comes around if you want more on that. Could you please talk more about how to approach entering the water during the winter months? Straight in or slowly? Yeah, no, I didn't even need to read it. Slowly and gently. Do not jump in, do not dive in.
Yeah. I know it makes for a great photo or a great video or whatever to jump into cold water, but please don't. Obviously, once you're in and you're acclimatized, you can jump in as much as you like, but the best and only way to get into cold water, and it doesn't matter what you're wearing, I should say, whether you're doing it skins or you're doing it with a wetsuit, get in nice and slowly, but not so slow that the bottom half of your body has gone numb. You know, it's sort of slowly and steadily to get in. And pat yourself with cold water, so it's more effective obviously if you've not got a wetsuit on, but you can, you know, put a bit of water down your wetsuit as you're walking in, and what that helps do is just it lessens the shock factor and make sure that you've got your breathing under control. I mean, I have seen people just, you know, they get to that hyperventilation stage and they just think, I just want to get this over and done with and get in. But obviously that's the worst thing that you can do, is that if your breathing is under control and then you just throw yourself into the water, well, that's not going to end well, is it? So slow and steady and nice and calm.
Yeah, and don't forget to breathe. I think one of the things I say more than anything when I'm even teaching swimming indoors, teaching conventional swimming, don't forget to breathe. It's really important to make sure you're breathing out, because what you tend to do when you start to go into cold water shock is you're going in the water, you just all you do is inhale. You've got to breathe out as well, because otherwise it makes you really dizzy. Your oxygen carbon dioxide balance goes out, and it just is bad. So make sure your breathing is under control. I tend to go in kind of to waist depth, get my breathing, make sure my breathing's under control there before I then carry on. And each time I go in a bit more, I'm like, oh yeah, no, breathing's okay, and then I'm off. Make sure your feet are still on the ground until you're at the point where you can breathe normally. If you're still like this and you try and swim, it's bad for everyone.
I don't know about you, but I get my swimmers to put their float in front of them, hold that in front of them as they're walking in, so that they've got almost like a barrier to stop them from plunging in. That often helps.
And it's quite reassuring as well. It's like having a little, I don't know, support dog.
There's a question on there from Dale, but I did ban him from asking any questions, so we're going to move on. No.
Right. Top one.
Any
recommendations on wetsuit brands for plus size?
Oh God.
In brackets, also a pastry fan, tend to get men's suits.
So I could talk all night about wetsuits and wetsuits for plus size figures, but we haven't got time for it. But what I would say is that, and this is from a female perspective, because most of my customers are female. Most of the people that I take swimming are women. I don't take that many men swimming for whatever reason. Maybe they just don't want to come out with me.
I think also to be fair though, to say on that, men's, you have usually a wider size range for men. Any of the brands, there'll be 10 sizes for men, 6 for women.
It drives me mad. But if you are a woman struggling to get a wetsuit, unless you have got a male body shape, traditional male body shape, don't buy a men's wetsuit, because they're not going to fit you, because traditionally men are going to be wider at the shoulders, narrow at the hips. There'll be room in the chest, but it's not going to go over your hips. So even if you've got an extra large men's wetsuit, it's still probably not going to be big enough to go over a plus size woman's stomach, hips and bum. One of the brands that I rate quite highly is Blue 70, because they're one of the few companies that have got something called an Athena size. So it's based on people being a little bit shorter and a little bit wider. So they've called it Athena, which is lovely. So it accommodates curves basically.
It's more curvy, isn't it? Yeah.
It still only goes up to a maximum of 85 kilos. I'm not entirely sure what that works out to in stone, but I know that when I weighed around the 15 to 16 stone mark, I was able to get into their biggest size wetsuit. And I'm not that tall, I'm about 5'7". When I've gone heavier than that, I can't get into it because I'm going to break it. So there is an issue there. There needs to be a bigger size. Lomo is a Scottish company who have started, they do quite really well priced wetsuits, and they've started doing something called a medium wide.
I've bought
it
two.
Is what it is. Yeah.
And they're great. I've had clients in them and they really liked them. Yeah.
The only thing I would
really
say about them, because they are cheaper, their construction is not as good as the Blue 70. But if you're just getting started and you don't want to spend a lot of money, Lomo are fantastic.
Yeah.
The other thing is having one made. You know, if you're going to go for it and you decide that you love swimming and you do want to wear a wetsuit, there's a company called Snug that make bespoke wetsuits. I've had several of these made for bigger swimmers so that I've got something to offer them, instead of just saying, oh sorry, I can't take you because I haven't got a wetsuit to fit you. I've even looked into producing my own range of them, and it is so difficult. It is really, really hard. So I do feel for people that can't just buy them off the peg. Changes come in, it just takes a long time because it's not like buying a jumper or a jacket, which is very easy to adapt and to size up. They're really technical items of clothing, and you know, they've got
to fit well.
They've got to fit.
You know, I think for anyone on here who's never worn a wetsuit, they've got to fit into kind of like every crease and crevice of you to work, because if there are baggy bits on them, the water flushes in and out and you get cold. And it makes it harder to swim. And if they're tight in the wrong place, really, really tight in the wrong place, you can't swim. You'll feel like you can't breathe. Yeah, and it is a minefield. And we both get asked this question a lot. And I'm like, I always kind of go, right, brace yourself for a very long conversation.
Yeah.
Right, let's have a look. Going on from pastry. How do you prepare, research, and use SwimSpot as a beginner?
So sorry, say that again.
How do you prepare or research and use SwimSpot as a beginner?
Oh right. I just go there and swim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, well, it's not obviously that simple, but it is that simple. I'll do a bit of research on the internet, see if anyone else has mentioned it, and find out from there. I'll have a look at my map, so good old Ordnance Survey or Google Maps on satellite, and then I'll just go and I'll check it out. And obviously I know this is a luxury of living in the Lake District. Sometimes if I go places in other parts of the country, I just do it on spec. But I just go and have a look at things like how easy is it to get in and out, because you might be okay getting in, but can you get back out again, especially on riverbanks and stuff like that. And look around for basically, is there anything there that is going to, either positively or negatively affect my safety and enjoyment of the swim? So, I try not to overcomplicate it.
Yeah, I think there's you kind of, I know Susanna in our roles do constantly, we have to do formal written down risk assessments and stuff, but basically every day in life we risk assess when we cross a road because we look for traffic. It's kind of learning what the potential risks and hazards are, and there's good resources out there to find that out as well if you kind of search, and it's just knowing what to look for, and you learn that with time. And
there's sometimes you don't know until you get in. That's the thing. You've got to be prepared to get in sometimes.
To kind of commit. Can you talk more about what to wear in winter if not a wetsuit, and advice on keeping hands warm? I have thick neoprene gloves but still get so cold more than anyone else. I would say you probably need some thicker gloves.
No, I wouldn't.
Oh really? Are you going to say put a wetsuit on to keep the rest of you warm?
No.
Ooh,
controversial.
Go for it.
Wearing thicker gloves is not necessarily going to keep you any warmer. It does depend what gloves they've already got, but I think the key part of that question is they said they already had thick gloves. So it might be a case of having mittens, because thicker gloves, the thicker you get, the further apart your fingers get, because material so thick. So if your fingers are together, like in a mitt, they're going to be warmer.
That's why I like my mittens.
Yeah. Make sure they're the right size, obviously, that you're not letting water into them. Make sure you're warm and fueled before you get into the water. Wetsuit's not necessarily the answer. It might just be that your hands are the thing that suffers, and it might just be that you have to deal with it whilst you're in the water. Something I find that works quite well is getting some the surgical gloves that you can wear when you're cleaning and things like that, that you'd have in your first aid kit. Put them on underneath your swim gloves. Keep your hands a little bit warmer. They're not thick enough to bulk the gloves out, and it makes the gloves easier to get off.
Yeah.
So that's one of my top tips. And I think as well, when you've taken the gloves off at the end of the swim, getting something on them, getting something on your hands straight away. Yeah,
that's the only time my hands get cold is when I get out. Yeah. And it's that instant come off, air's cold, wind, and they freeze. So now I take a sacrificial pair of gloves so that they go on, and I wear those while I get changed. They get wet, and then I've got a dry pair for afterwards.
That's the word I've been looking for.
So what, sacrificial?
Sacrificial. Because that's what. So when I do my winter sessions, that's what I get everyone to do, and I always struggle to explain why I'm asking them to bring a spare pair of gloves that are going to get wet. Sacrificial. That's
sacrificial. There you go. You've got a new turn. Oh, what brand of neoprene gloves and boots have you found are the best? I'm going to let you answer this because I agree with you anyway.
I mean, I should say it does depend on the shape of your hands. Ultimately, I think I've never found a pair of socks that are better than Seaskin's Legend. They really are the absolute best for me. Might not necessarily be for anyone else. Seaskin's gloves fit my hands really well. I think if you were going to swim skins with gloves on and swim front crawl, you'd want a strap around the wrist, which you don't get on the Seaskins. Lomo have got a really good wrist gasket, but they're quite small and stubby. Whereas
Lomo I don't get on with because I've got big hands, but they're quite thin. So they're too fat for my hands. Yeah.
I think ultimately, if you do go out and buy a pair of gloves or socks and you don't get on with them, there is a really good resale market for swim stuff. So don't worry too much, but also don't worry about getting. I openly admit I give my swimmers cheap Amazon neoprene a lot of the time because they do take a lot of battering, and I think as well, I don't want to give a £30 pair of gloves out on every session unless somebody's got a condition that needs it. Don't be afraid to get the cheap ones because they might work. So give them a try.
I think what I found with a lot of my kit is unfortunately test it and buy it and try it. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does. Wetsuits, goggles, gloves, socks, you name it. But
going back to what you said about wetsuits thing, whatever you do with the gloves, they've got to fit properly, not too so tight that they compress your fingers because then the blood can't flow, they get cold anyway. Not so big that they're filling it with water.
If they're flushing in and out, they get cold. My first pair of gloves were too tight. And I had to get rid of them because of that. Right, there's two on any dates for cold water swim courses, and when are your group swims starting up again in 2022?
So
I know that Suzanna's already published a list.
Everything's out. It's just not on the website yet. I normally give my subscribers a week or so to get everything booked. Everything should be on the website this week, so when you go onto my website, please don't go onto it now because it's really bad. I've been working on it and it's a mess. Just give me a couple of days to fix it. And all my groups will be on by the end of this week. Cold water stuff, unfortunately it's full at the moment because my groups are small when I'm working in, when I say cold water, I mean winter swims. So I have smaller groups, so obviously there's less places available, but you can book a private one if everything is full. Am I allowed to do a plug for my online session?
Yes, of course you can.
Okay.
It's not the BBC.
I'm such a bad self-publicist.
It's all right. We're both as bad as each other.
So I am doing so my winter skills session that I run. If I've got enough demand, I will do one in February. I do that at Buttermere Old Schoolroom, which is a really lovely setting, and then we go and swim in Buttermere, and we've got somewhere nice and warm as a base. But I do the same thing online, but it's condensed into an hour. So if anyone wants to come to that, it's bookable on my website, and it will be on Thursday at 7:30. So you can come along to that. Yeah,
go join that. She's ace. And in terms of anyone who wants to come to me, drop me a message through my website. I'm not as far on as Suzanna, partly because of access issues. So I don't have any kind of group swims that you can book onto. However, I run one-to-ones all year round, and if you've got a bunch of friends who want to swim together and come and do a session with me, bring that to me and I'll sort something out for you. All the links for our contact details and stuff should have been in the thread, and they'll be in an email afterwards.
There's someone that's asked about places to try on in South Yorkshire.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's South Yorkshire, but there's Triology. Where are they based?
Oh, I don't know.
No.
They Midlands.
No, it's not Midlands. This is showing. I think they're near Darlington, which is not South Yorkshire.
Northeast.
No,
Northeast.
Yeah.
There's a place near Wigan called the Endurance Store.
Okay.
It's very good.
Oh, that's isn't it?
Yeah, there is somewhere in the Midlands, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. Obviously Decathlon if they've got stuff in, but that's little bit seasonal. It is a perennial nightmare because people do need to try stuff on. What I did, I haven't had to buy a new suit or change my suit for a while, so I haven't had to do it. But when I was starting out, I used to max out my credit card and wiggle and order 4, 5, 6 suits. Different brands, different sizes. I have to go between men's and women's because I'm 6 foot tall and the suits just don't go to my height. Which again causes problems, but I've found the suit that works now. But that's what I had to do, and they have a free return policy, so you can send it back for free. But it is a continual issue for people. I think there are swim specific wetsuits, and we would both advise anyone to use a swim specific wetsuit because they're designed for the activity you're doing. But if you're starting out and you've got a wetsuit, whatever it is, go and get on with it. Yeah, go and get on with it. Give it a go. You might be a bit too buoyant and floaty and not quite in the right position, but it's going to give you a feel for whether you're going to enjoy outdoor swimming. Yeah.
Something I always say. Sorry.
Yeah. And if you don't have one, borrow one from a mate. Yeah.
And if you start out in the wrong wetsuit, it's what I did as well. I had this horrible old surf wetsuit that was men's, extra large, and it felt horrible. And that's why I stopped wearing it. As soon as you get, once you realise that, okay, I love this and I want to do it and I'm going to get myself a, proper wetsuit, you'll go faster and you'll feel better because you've got the right materials for the job. So yeah, don't necessarily be put off because it is expensive to get into ultimately if you're going to go head to toe neoprene.
Oh yeah, no, it is. Yeah, but also that fit thing. So my first suit was too buoyant. So basically, proper swim wetsuits, because they've come from triathlon world, they assume that everyone swims front crawl.
Yes.
Also, most triathletes, because they run and cycle, are often quite heavy legged. So they've got muscly legs, which means that when you swim front crawl, you want to be in this position, nice and flat on the top. If you've got heavy legs, your legs sink. So a lot of swim wetsuits are designed with buoyancy around your hips and your legs and your bum that pull you up.
Yeah.
If, like me, you carry your weight in your legs and your bum, it means you're quite buoyant here. And if you put buoyancy on there, your bum ends up in the air and my feet are out of the water. And that caused quite a lot of back problems. It caused me back pain because it was making my back arch.
Yeah.
So that's why I had to change my suit. And I know it's really difficult to find the right thing, but I know for a lot of the kind of people that you and I get, a lot of heads up breaststrokers or generally breaststroke swimmers don't want to swim front crawl, and that's fine.
No.
But there aren't as many suits that accommodate for that.
No. And
it can make it uncomfortable. So just being mindful that you may get a suit that doesn't work, but don't let it put you off. Look for something else and change it.
And the thing, Imogen's just made a good point that wetsuits are difficult, and she said, why not try without first? And that's just as valid. I think the first time I ever swam outside in the Lake District was without a wetsuit. But at that stage, I thought that I was going to get cold and drown and die, because I believed everything that I'd ever seen on the TV.
Exactly.
But I think there is a barrier. I think some people, they believe that it's cold and they need a wetsuit. And I think if that's the thing that you need to get in, that's fine, wear it. I don't think I don't like the competitive thing about whether you wear one or not. Yeah. Which is not what Imogen is saying. I think it's just the point that you don't need them if you don't want to wear them. But certainly when you're first getting started and you're getting used to the water, it's a nice safety blanket to have one.
Yeah. It keeps you up. It's the buoyancy as much as the warmth as well that keeps you kind of up in the air. Right, so we have unsurprisingly filled our full 90 minutes. I thought we probably would.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for coming. I hope you've enjoyed it. Matt will send out an email with some links on. If you know anyone that couldn't come but would like to watch this back, it'll be on YouTube in a day or so, depending on how long it takes to upload. So thanks all for coming. Drop us a line if you want some help.
I'm just